Sorry.
All right, no problem. I call the meeting to order. Welcome to meeting number 104 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Veterans Affairs. Conformément à l'article 108.2 du règlement et
Pursuant to Standing Order 108, Paragraph 2, and the motions adopted by the committee on Thursday, March 9th, 2023, and on Tuesday, December 5, 2023, the committee resumes its study on the recognition of Persian Gulf veterans and reviewing of wartime service and special duty service. And I would like to mention that we have Ms. Blaney, who is online, and I would like to wish a warm welcome to Ms. Vandelberg to our committee. You all know that all comments must be addressed to the chair. Mr. Desilets? Mr. Chair, we are at meeting 106, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, you're right. Mr. Desilets? You're right. I'm keeping an eye. Well, then. So without further ado, we will welcome our witnesses.
Our witnesses with us today from the Persian Gulf Veteran of Canada. We have the President, Mr. Harold Davis, and the Vice President, Mike McGlennon. Monsieur, welcome, and you will have 5 minutes for your opening statement, and members of the committee will ask you some questions. So the floor is yours. Please, Mr. Davis.
Thank you for the opportunity to address this committee on behalf of the Persian Gulf Veterans of Canada. My name is Harold Davis, and I'm the president, and this is Mike McGlennon, the vice president. Our organization represents over 4,200 veterans. We appear before you today to advocate for the legal recognition of Persian Gulf veterans as wartime service veterans. This acknowledgement is long overdue and critical for dignity, health, and welfare of those who voluntarily served. The objective of this study is to obtain definition of war, wartime service, special duty service, and the process of determining and critical for veterans' benefits. We have spent the last 10 years searching for national defense and veterans affairs policies for these definitions without success. This lack of fairness and transparency is egregious. National Defense is the responsible government department for these definitions and should be asked to provide copies of their policy for committee review if they exist. Since 1950 to today, all governments that deploy our military on overseas operations are initially placed by National Defense on active duty and classified as special duty veterans. In 1981, Korean War veterans were redesignated wartime service veterans 28 years after they returned home. This legal precedence reflects that the Government of Canada has and can in the future effect military service classifications, status change when deemed appropriate. In 1990, under UN authority, Canada, along with 41 other coalition partners, liberated Kuwait. It was the largest concentration of military might in the theater since World War II. Additionally, this was the first time Canadian service women were deployed in a combat role. Gulf veterans would tell you they were at war. Ask the pilot that flew a bombing mission against the fourth largest military at the time, and the Navy veteran that sailed in the minefield to assist in the rescue of United States Navy ship that struck a mine. Ask a nurse that treated prisoners of war during the conflict, or ask a veteran that were under numerous Scud missile attacks. Yet, despite their service, Persian Gulf Veterans of Canada have not been properly recognized as wartime service. This slight has ramifications upon military service records, military history, accurate commemoration, and the medical benefits available to affected veterans. Our advocacy has received support from Korean War veterans, UN peacekeepers, NATO veterans, ANAVETS, and over 75 members of parliament, 10 senators, and even the former late Prime Minister Brian Mulroney, and these are just to name a few. The Governor General has issued a Gulf and Kuwait Medal with bar for service during the actual war, and the CDS and Governor General both approved 6 battle honors issued to Persian Gulf units for active participation with a formed and armed enemy. However, the pilots, sailors, of the same units continued to be denied the same level of recognition by national defense. Why are we being denied? The country of Kuwait also recognized our service and issued the Kuwait Liberation Medal over here, for which we have been denied the right to wear with our regular medals. As a country, we owe it to these veterans to honor their service with the same recognition that is afforded to others who have fought in wars on behalf of Canada. Designating Persian Gulf veterans as wartime service veterans will provide equality with the prior wartime service veterans. Restore a sense of pride and honor to veterans who feel forgotten, ensuring that their place in Canadian military history is accurately commemorated. The Persian Gulf War medical insurance coverage was provided under Pension Act, which is also you will find in all preceding war service veterans listed. Should we be reclassified to wartime service, our ill and injured veterans should be given the choice to elect coverage and under either the Pension Act or the 2006 Well-Being Act. Persian Gulf War veterans are seeking the placement upon the National War Memorial, along with those who have served Canada in times of war. In closing, I call upon the committee to act decisively, strongly recommend that the Persian Gulf veterans be reclassified as wartime service veterans. Their sacrifice will no longer be minimized. Their service will be honored in the same manner as those who served under major conflicts. Veterans serve Canadians and all political parties, and we ask the committee to provide non-partisan solution that will ensure our overdue honor is restored. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Davis, and Mr. Glidden also thank you for your service. And now you can hear. There's no sound. Let us check. 1, 2, 3. No, don't hear anything. It works now, eh? Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Thank you so much. So now, and you know that you're gonna have questions in French also. So be prepared for that. And now for 6 minutes, I'd like to invite Mr. Blake Richards to start.
Sure. Thanks, Chair. And appreciate you guys being here today and, pushing for the change that you're pushing for. My role is Shadow Minister for Veterans Affairs, and that's often referred to as the critic for Veterans Affairs. So for most people, that kind of is associated with someone who's complaining or expressing negative thoughts or sentiments. And really, I don't see it that way. I see it as more like the true root of the word critic, which is to be a judge. And that can apply in a lot of places. For example, for you guys, when you served in the Canadian Armed Forces, you would, I'm sure, have received constructive criticism during training to be able to help you be better prepared for combat. And that's what would have been, expected of in any role. And so my role as the official critic for the government is I really try to do what I can to try to point out what I think the expectations of veterans would be on the government, much like where you, when you served, the expectations for you as members of the Canadian Armed Forces would have been made clear. So my question, I guess, to you based on that would be, what are your expectations of the Minister of Veterans Affairs and the Prime Minister with regards to recognizing wartime service?
I think you should answer this one.
Expectations. That's not a simple answer. It involves, in our opinion, it involves both national defense and Veterans Affairs. So neither department is singularly responsible for resolving our issues.
Yeah, no, I understand that. There's no question that it is the the defense minister in consultation with the Veterans Affairs minister. So I guess, let me rephrase the question. What would your expectations of the government be in terms of addressing this recognition of wartime service?
It's, well, we wish, as Harold said in his testimony, we're looking for redesignation or reclassification of our service status from special duty area to wartime service veterans. And that will have pension, medical pension insurance coverage ramifications, and that will have commemoration ramifications, because at the moment, wartime service is identified and placed on the National Cenotaph that's downtown here in Ottawa. And I know from discussions with senior Veterans Affairs officials that it has an effect on their annual commemoration budget and what they spend money on and what they choose to place into their calendar for events.
Yeah. So, I mean, as much as it's great that we're having this study in committee, is there any reason that you're aware of why this change couldn't be made right now? You know, I don't think it requires a vote in the House of Commons. I don't think it requires a study or a report from this committee. I don't think it even requires new laws to be introduced. So if this change could be made today, and I believe it could, why do you think it hasn't happened yet? Like, what do you think the reasons are that it hasn't happened?
We don't believe that national defense has any policies in existence. We have unsuccessfully been able to find out if they have policy. Normally, governments place their policies out for public consumption. There's fullness and transparency. It's a QRNO. It's a Library of Parliament document. It's out there for everybody to see. And we have been, the committee is sitting here today trying to get the root of some problems. And if there were policy documents that existed and were in place, then we wouldn't need to have a meeting.
Right.
Or the meeting would be about something else. Why haven't you followed the existing policy?
Right.
So we cannot call out national defense and say they don't have one. But I would like to see it, and I do believe you would like to see it. And I would ask that you ask national defense to produce it so we can look at it. And if we have something to read or look at, then it could lead to a different change of discussions. Why haven't you followed the policy?
I guess it boils down to this for me, and this kind of circling back to my initial comments about my role here, which is really to try to push for the expectations of veterans from the government. And, you know, you guys have, I think, formed your group in 2017. You've been advocating since then. You're telling us that you're not aware of any policy that exists, but I guess the question begs the question, why not? Why is there not a policy? What, you know, when there is the ability to do that, when there is the ability to act on this, it could happen right now. I guess I just have to look at in that role as critic or judge of the government. And I just have to say that I would not only give the government a poor review, but I would say that I would have to admonish the fact that they have claimed to express support. I mean, I've heard Liberal members, as I've heard all members, say they support what you guys are trying to do, but they could take action on it right now, and they haven't. And I just find that frustrating. So hopefully we can get a recommendation out of this committee, and hopefully the government will actually start listening for a change.
Quickly, yeah.
This lack of a policy is long-standing and beyond. It started well before the establishment of the current serving government. And we are seeking nonpartisan solutions to this problem. It's been 33 years. There's lots of blame to be thrown around. And I am not blaming the current serving government today for our current issues.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Richards. And now let's go to Mr. Wilson Miao for 6 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And first, I'd like to thank our witnesses for being here today. Mike and Harold, thank you for the service you've done for our country. And really sharing your expertise in this area, especially both of you, along with over 4,000 veterans, have served in the Persian Gulf War. Could you please share with the committee more about this operation, whether both of you are deployed under special duty service or wartime service?
I went to the Gulf on HMCS Athabascan. We sailed over and ended up at Port Said before entering into the Suez Canal. We were told we couldn't go in there because an order in council had to come out to put us on active duty. Now, you can ask the 300 people on my ship or the over almost 1,000 people on all three ships what that meant. And the only thing we were told at that time was, hey, you're going on active duty. And they said, I think that they took the clause out where they can shoot you if you don't obey a direct order. So that's all we basically knew going in there. So active duty to us was not that much different than everyday duty. But come to find out, it's a big difference between active duty and just sitting at home duty. And we didn't really understand it. And I don't think today that a lot of veterans even still don't understand it because, as Mike has said earlier, where's the policy that states what it all is and what it means to the veteran that is going overseas, period, right? For us going to the Persian Gulf, we're told you're coming home when you get home.
And with that, let's talk about the benefit side, right? You mentioned in your testimony about the difference between the Pension Act and the Well-Being Act. For those who have served at the Persian Gulf War, what type of benefit you have access to that is eligible for serving during that time?
I think you should take this one.
I will speak for myself, and I do believe that we're split medical insurance, both Harold and I, and that would also apply to our membership. I myself had medical issues, but because of the timing when I submitted my claims, they went in under the Pension Act because they preceded the establishment of the 2006 Well-Being Act. And because the Persian Gulf was a 1990-91 event, the preponderance of our medical claims, if there were any, would have occurred under the Pension Act. As we get older, and if we have new issues and we are able to tie them to military service, because we are special duty area veterans, Minister Pettipaw's reference manual says that medical issue will be covered under the Well-Being Act. If we were wartime service veterans, the case could be made that wartime service currently is only covered under the Pension Act, and the members could be given a choice on each claim. Would you like this covered under the Pension Act, or would you like it covered under the Well-Being Act?
So it's either or.
But that choice would only occur if we were designated as wartime service veterans. Now.
And Harold, would you like to add more to that?
It's a choice that we don't have, but when we were serving in the Gulf, we thought we had because it was under the Pension Act. And we were told when we were over there by the commanders and stuff, guys, this is a war. And now by the time you get home, you'll be war veterans if you get home, right? So that kind of talk puts it into a situation where we came back from there thinking, oh yeah, we're covered. And we're also war veterans. But come to realize we're not covered like that, and we're not war veterans. But when we put our claims in prior to 2006, I have, like Mike, a Pension Act claim in. But anything else is under the Well-Being Act. I never had a choice And no matter if the injuries I'm claiming for now were a direct result of my service in the Persian Gulf, I don't have a choice who pays, Pension Act or the Well-Being Act. You're going to get paid under the Well-Being Act.
And I would assume these information are not known prior to being deployed, but knowing it after.
We didn't know. We just, and another thing we said, we were told we should up our life insurance before we go.
Mhm.
So, you know, I went in and I took out, I went in and took out 3,000 extra or $300,000 extra because I didn't know I was coming back.
Let's talk about commemoration, because I understand that currently veterans who was deployed to the Persian Gulf War are not commemorated at a level where some other special duty service are. Can you talk a bit more on how you feel is much appropriate to commemorate the?
So let me ask the people here sitting here. Last time you were at an event to deal with military, and the person was speaking, and they were talking about the wars and veterans and stuff. When's the last time you heard Persian Gulf? So does that tell you anything about commemoration for Persian Gulf service? We're a footnote now, and that's not right. You know, we served, we went where our country asked us to go. We didn't know if we were coming home, and now we're just asking for fairness.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Et maintenant, nous allons passer à
And now we will turn it over to Mr. Luc Desilets for the next 6 minutes. Over to you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning to my dear colleagues. I would like to thank the guests for appearing. It's a pleasure to see you once again. You've been here a couple of times. I think you, Mr. Glennon, had contact with Mr. Brian Mulroney at a certain time, and back then there was a discussion about the Gulf War. Am I mistaken?
He was asking that we had contact with Prime Minister Brian Mulroney.
Yes, we did have, in fact, I got a copy of his letter here. I reached out to the former Prime Minister, and when I did reach him, because he's not an easy guy to reach at the time, he was very...
Un petit problème de traduction.
Excusez-moi.
Problème de traduction en français, Monsieur le Président.
Ah, excusez. Problème de traduction.
Sorry, there's a translation issue into French. So when you heard English, you couldn't hear the French interpretation? Is that what you're saying? Is it working now? Perfect, then can we resume?
At the top.
On recommence?
Yeah.
Allez-y, vous connaissez la question.
Well, you already know the question. Please carry on.
When I finally got hold to former Prime Minister Mulroney, he was amazed that it hadn't been done. He didn't know. He turned around and he said to me, he says, "We got to fix this." Is one of his exact words, and he became one of our supporters. He came to the War Museum a couple of years back and presented Gulf Kuwait Liberation Medals along with the Kuwaiti ambassador to veterans that never received their medals 33 years later almost. But he told, I was walking with him and MP Brizard, and he told him, he said, "We got to get this fixed." So he didn't even know at the time. And now why he didn't know, I cannot answer that question, right? But to me, it goes right back to national defense.
Là, on parle d'une rencontre il y a 2 ans.
Well, we're talking about a meeting that held 2 years ago, and you also met him when he was Prime Minister?
No, I did not, sir.
C'est il y a 2 ans.
Only at the War
That was
Memorial.
two years ago. All right. Well, I am very optimistic in all of this, Mr. Chair, because our conservative friends and Mr. Blake Richards mentioned it, that we need to rectify the situation. So should the conservatives get to power, should they get to power, the problem would probably be resolved, right? So my next question, in your opinion, and this could sound quite particular, did Canada take part, in your opinion, directly in combat operations in the Persian Gulf? Or did Canada play a support role with countries that were officially at war?
Excuse me. Canada, I cannot answer that question 100% because I'm what we call a lower ranker, right? So I fixed a helicopter. But talking to other officers and stuff like that, our Air Force towards the end of the war was flying bombing runs, and that's written down. That's on the D&D or the, I can't remember the site, but it's written that they started. I got pilot statements that even say the same thing. And we've got that, and we were in the Gulf, but we never turned around and fired a shot. We like my ship was a protective ship for a HMC or the USS Mercy, the hospital ship. So we were protecting her while we're in the Gulf, right? But there are other ships. We went into minefields to bring out ships that hit mines that couldn't turn a screw, and we went in to get a ship out. So when you turn around and ask about combat, we never had combat troops in there. We had the hospital for our injured and all like that. But the only ones that I knew was the pilots. They flew bombing missions towards the end of the mission. Plus, we had one that was shooting an Iraqi gunboat.
Vous avez fait référence à une lettre 30.
You made reference to a letter earlier, which I think Mr. Mulroney addressed to you. Am I mistaken? You have that letter. So could that letter be submitted to the committee?
We've already submitted 14 different documents to the committee, and the letters were in there also.
La lettre était dans le document?
So the letter was part of those documents?
Qu'elle suivra.
But I have a copy here.
So we imagine that the letter will be translated and we'll have a copy. So another question for you. In your case, as individuals, do you make a difference or distinction between special duty and wartime service? Is there a difference in your opinion?
The closest things that we can find in government documentation, one place where it gives a description of what medical insurance coverage, excuse me, is applicable to special duty service. It uses the language heightened risk. It doesn't give me the definition of what a special duty area mission, the definition of a special duty area mission is, but I found a definition in Veterans Affairs about what the level of insurance is, and that's heightened risk. When you get to war or wartime service, I testified earlier that we could not find any definition in government publications and national defense that will help us, you and I, understand what my wartime service is. The closest example that I can find and give to you is if you look for the criteria needed for battle honors, which is an internal national defense process that I'll get into later if I get an opportunity to speak about it. And the criteria for that is to actively participate with a formed and armed enemy. So that, I'm not a lawyer, but that sounds like a good starting point for wartime service versus heightened risk. It's the best I have. Thank you.
Merci.
Thank you very much. And now on the screen, we have with us Miss Rachel Blaney, and she has 6 minutes to ask questions. Please go ahead.
Well, thank you so much, Chair, and a special thanks to both Harold and Mike. I'm really delighted that you're here, and I'm sorry that I'm not able to be there with you. And I see behind you that there's a few members that have also served. So I just want to thank you for your service, but also the folks behind for your service as well. Thank you for being here to stand in solidarity. So, my grandfather was a veteran from Korea, and I remember you educating me, actually, Mike, about the fight that the Korean veterans took to get their service recognized. And it seems unfortunate that it's like every new generation behind has to do this fight now. So I'm just wondering if you could, either of you, talk about what this fight has felt like for you. And I think what I've heard clearly from you is that it's both about benefits and it's also about the acknowledgement part. So I'm just wondering if you could sort of tell us what those two things are and what would be the fundamental change that would make this right for you, and what change needs to happen to make sure that there's never veterans fighting this fight again.
Mike?
Thank you for that question, Rachel. The difference in commemoration is rather large, and I understand why, and I actually agree with it in some levels. During my service career, I had 5 different tours, one of which I think qualifies me to be re-identified as a wartime service veteran, and the other 4, I'd be happy with my special duty service designation. But currently, all 5 of them are designated as special duty area service. This country, rightly so, has put a lot of focus on the sacrifices and the military history, and for extremely important reasons, on their wartime service veterans. Mm-hmm. I had the good fortune to be posted to Belgium, Shape Belgium, for 3 years. So I was basically on the French Belgian battlefield sites within a couple hours drive. And so I made it a personal goal to go and visit all the cemeteries, go to Vimy Ridge. The experience made me feel extremely small. Yeah. And I really don't know if I'd have had the courage to do what those soldiers before me did, but it was my way of paying homage to their service. And as I'm speaking about this, I'm getting chills up my back.
Yeah. So really what you're saying, Mike, is it's the definition. The definition needs to be clearer so that it's more transparent.
Well, my military history records are inaccurate, in my opinion, at the moment. I have a family. I have grandchildren. I have a spouse. Brothers and sisters. I want them to understand at some level of what I endured during my service career. And in some ways, through no fault of their own, they're blind to it. They weren't there, so they're never going to know it the way I know it. But this country doesn't call me a wartime service veteran, so my family doesn't think that I am. My neighbors do not think I am. So I carry this inside me.
And
that's
when you
well
turn around
said.
and look, can I add
Yes,
that, please?
yes, of course, Harold.
When we turn around and look at it, we went over there. Our family sat at home, and they turned around and they watched that TV religiously. Every day they watched it. My wife did. And I got to stop.
Yeah.
I recall telling my mother that before I left that if I didn't come home, please accept it. I'm going overseas, doing my duty, proud to do it. Cared about the people that I was serving next to on my left and my right. And I really did not know what was going to happen. It was the largest deployment of military might in the world after the Second World War. And we all thought It was going to last a long time. And I know that Canada was extremely worried about the potential casualties that were going to get incurred during that period. But it fooled us all through great leadership and bit of luck. It turned out to be a lot less than we all thought. But, you know, I was scared.
Mhm.
I didn't know what was going to happen.
Yeah.
I was attacked with ballistic missiles, something that no other military service person since had to endure.
Thank you. So my next question is, I so admire the work that you guys have been doing in your advocacy. And I'm wondering if you've had a chance to meet with either the defense minister or the veterans minister and what the response was if you did.
To their office on many different occasions and nothing. I've also reached out to the CDS's office on a few different occasions, and I got told by the previous one CDS that he has a busy schedule and he doesn't have time. So
Okay.
now, and when you turn around and look at that, I got a veteran that is getting his Gulf Kuwait medal with bar 33 years later, and I reached out to the CDS office for a campaign medal to be given because with bar is not a lot of an out there. And I got told he's too busy and you can give it to him. So I'm sorry, I took that as an insult.
Thank you
Right,
for
so-
sharing that.
And now Rebecca, Senator Patterson Rebecca is going to present that medal on Monday to this deserving veteran of the Gulf War.
Wow.
And that took me quite a while to get done.
Thank you for that. I
Thank
know
you.
my time is up.
Thank-
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bliney. And we have more questions to come, and this is the second round. And I would like to invite Mr. Fraser-Tommy for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. And through you, Chair, to our guests, thank you very much for joining us. Again, want to recognize the service that you've done for our country and all those that are joining you today. We're grateful. It can be very, very frustrating sometimes sitting in our chairs hearing the testimony. So the onus is not on you to prove things. The onus is on us to be able to deliver and get results. And I'm just struck by what you said earlier on, Mr. Davis, that you've not been able to hold a meeting with the Minister of National Defense. Did I hear that correctly? That he was
I've
too
met
busy?
with Veterans Affairs Minister. Both me and Mike have met off. Whenever we've asked for a meeting, we've actually got the meeting with her. But Minister of National Defense, nope. I can't even get a reply back from his office.
And so this is about legal recognition for active duty, and you're not being recognized, or you're not even getting a meeting with the Minister of National Defense. That's very disappointing because it just seems to be that the solution to the problem that you're facing is that there is no policy. You've been looking for a policy, but there is no policy with regards to your active service being recognized, and the power and authority is within that minister's hands, and he won't even meet with you. I also find it challenging, and I'm going to kind of share a little bit of a story. So we talk about how the Korean vets have been recognized, and when it seems so simple that they've been recognized for their service, doesn't it seem like you should be recognized for your service in the Persian Gulf?
Thank you for that question. We are, from a legal standpoint, the Persian Gulf Special Duty Mission Service was legally identical to the Korean War experience. Both Chapter 7 missions, parts of a coalition, liberation of a country, although that term for Korea is loosely used because they only had that armistice. Actually, the country hasn't been liberated. We're still at war with Korea in some manner. But I forgot the next question. The absence, because national defense doesn't have a policy, they don't need to be held accountable for anything. And for us, our opinion is it's the Office of the National Defense, a 33-year office. So multiple parties have been in power. It's a long-standing issue. We're not here to point fingers. We're focusing in on the office.
Yeah, and I understand that, and that's not what I'm getting at. What I'm saying is that Korea's been recognized, and in 1988, there was a badge that was issued for recognition of service, and I believe it was Mulrooney, who is also is a big supporter. You testified that you have a letter and saying that we've got to fix this, and so what I'm saying is there is a very simple solution, and you have a very good argument for your case. Why has this change not happened in the 8 years that you've been trying to advocate for this, which seems like a logical answer to this? Why has that not changed?
I think I might well, when I visited, some of you commented around the similar issues. The solution seems to be, the problem seems to be in front of my nose.
Yeah.
But the office that we believe has the power to solve the problem is National Defense. And
they're not answering your call.
And they're not taking our calls. And as long as they don't take our calls, then the problem is not in their inbox. They don't know anything.
Well, it must be very, very frustrating for you to sit here when the solution is right there, and all it takes is one meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tolmie. And now, colleague, I would like to invite Ms. Anita Vandenberg for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and it's a pleasure to be a guest here in this committee for this particular meeting that is an extremely important meeting. And I know that you referenced that event for the 30th anniversary of the liberation of Kuwait at the War Museum, and I was there as parliamentary secretary, and it was my first conversation with you. And I think that all of us feel very strongly that nobody should have to fight for recognition. And I think that I do speak for all members of this committee to say that as far as we're concerned, you are war heroes. And I think that the long overdue recognition is something that we all want to see happen. And I just wanted to go to a little bit of the process issue, because I think that what we're facing here is that there is actually no mechanism through which this kind of recognition would be done. And you've often said it's not about just the Persian Gulf War. This is about creating a mechanism and a definition so that in future battles, 30 years later, that no other veterans have to fight this. So is it enough for you that you be recognized as wartime veterans? Or are you really looking for a systemic change that would actually create a mechanism so that in the future it would be almost automatic, that if you had this, it automatically makes you a war veteran and no one else has to fight? Is that what you're looking for here?
You want to talk about the battle honor system?
Great question. Great question. The lack of a process and a systemic issue. So everything that the military has done since 1950, we didn't declare war on Korea, we didn't declare war in Iraq, we didn't declare war on Afghanistan, we only declared war on Germany and Japan. So in those circumstances, it was rather obvious. But everything since 1950, the national D&D or national defense has put those military veterans into the special, put them on active service, classified them as special duty veterans, and sent them off to do their business. The veterans go off, they serve their country, some of them die, don't come home, But anyway, they all come home. They're still wearing uniforms. They can't do anything. Eventually, they get out. They become veterans. They become aware of issues, missing benefits, and commemoration isn't appropriate to their service. And they start advocating. So this is where we are in the stage of the game. So we are here to advocate for ourselves because that's officially the only who we can talk about. However, as a concerned veteran, I would like to ensure that future veterans don't have to go through this process. This idiocy has to cease. It's not fair. It's not transparent. Veterans have died before they're even going to know that they are a wartime service veteran. I'm 66 years old. I don't know if I'm going to wake up tomorrow morning. It's possible. So as we get older, when we rededicated the War Memorial in 2014, we put the Boer War on the National War Memorial. Those guys were long gone. They weren't wartime service veterans, in Canada's opinion, until 2014.
And I guess what I'd also like to get at from you, because you've been at this for some time, is that there really right now is no mechanism within either DND or VAC to actually do this. Therefore, DND is saying that this is actually it's commemorations, which means that it's under Veterans Affairs. And that's why I know that you've had many meetings with the minister. And I do understand there may be a process underway where those definitions are being looked at of what that would look like. But I think that for you, when you went, you were going to war in your mind. You've described that very well. And beyond the benefits, because it's easy to talk about benefits, and I know that there are certain parallels and benefits that DND has put in there, but really what this is about, what I'm getting from some of the veterans I've spoken to, is the acknowledgement. It's in your heart. It's so that you can stand up, and you mentioned your grandchildren, and I think that I've often said that it matters to you, so it matters to us. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about, beyond all of the benefits and the details, what this would mean to you if you were recognized as war veterans.
It just, for a lot of the veterans I know, I got some veterans out there that they won't talk about it. They won't wear their medals. They will not have anything to do with anything veteran-wise. And and here's the quote that I got, well, my own country don't give a shit, why should I? Right? And pardon my language, but that's what it was.
Okay, Mr. Davis, thank you. And maintenant, allons-y vers Monsieur Luc Desilets.
And now Mr. Luc Desilets, but this time around for 2.5 minutes. Mr. Chair, if you could provide a specific answer. So you met with the Minister of Veteran Affairs, if I'm not mistaken? Yeah. Could you tell us what were the results out of, or what came out of that meeting?
Thank you. I have met with the Minister of Veterans Affairs on a few occasions. The last meeting I had with her, I actually got an hour in her office, private, just herself and myself. So it was a very cordial meeting. She has told us that she is hoping for a robust report from this committee on this issue. She would has advised me that she would like to take some action, but she's waiting for the recommendations of the committee. And I don't know that, I'm not a politician, so I don't know what the definition is. That is.
Et cette rencontre date de quand, votre dernière rencontre?
And when was this meeting? When was the last time you met with her?
It was just before your summer break. So it was the last week, that last week before your...
Parfait. Est-ce que j'ai bien compris tantôt, le seul document...
So, did I understand that the only document that makes a difference between wartime service and I always forget the other expression, special duty service, that this features in an insurance document.
As far as we know, yes, because the insurance document states the SDA for it, and there's no wartime service in the Well-Being Act at all. It's not mentioned anywhere in the Well-Being Act. So under that, you would have to look elsewhere for that answer.
OK. Merci, Monsieur le Président. J'aurais une motion.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I have a motion to table. Please carry on. Mr. Desilets, carry on with your motion. Now, based on the content of everything that I've heard, I think there's something missing, which is important. We would have guests next week who are civil servants. So my motion is as follows: that the committee summon the Minister of National Defense to provide testimony as part of the events of the Persian Gulf. All right, excellent. Can we vote on this, or at least receive the motion? So it is in connection with the study. So maybe we will consult with our colleagues. They don't have a copy of your motion. Mr. Desilets, would you like once more to read out the motion so that colleagues can get a grasp? That the committee summon the Minister of National Defense to testify as part of the study to recognize the Persian Gulf veterans, and as soon as possible. Thank you. Any questions? The question, the duration, you didn't mention time, 1 hour. So I have two comments. First, Ms. Hafner, followed by Mr. Sarai. I just wanted that we suspend for a few moments to discuss with colleagues, if that's possible.
Is that right? Okay.
Well then, we'll suspend for a few minutes and we'll resume.
Nous reprenons la
We
séance.
will resume. So, we were discussing the motion tabled by Mr. Luc Desilets, and I would like to know if there are any comments. We have Ms. Blaney online and other colleagues. So if there's no comments, we will simply move on to the vote. I don't see any hands raised. So are we unanimous on adopting Mr. Desilets' motion? So Mr. Desilets' motion is carried, and I will immediately instruct the registrar to inform the concerned to appear for an hour as requested in the motion. Mr. Desilets, you have 30 seconds remaining. Perfect, then. Mr. McGlennan, as a follow-up to the discussion we had a moment ago regarding the minister, I can sense what the atmosphere was, but I understand that the minister, based on the conversations I've had with her, that she's sensitive to the idea. And of course, other ministers have been sympathetic to the cause in the past, but do you expect any follow-up from her?
I've seen her twice since that meeting. Recently, I met with her at the blessing of the Afghan Memorial, and she promised that she would be meeting with me shortly, with myself, Harold, and Sammy. But she's waiting for a report.
Parfait. Merci beaucoup, c'est tout.
Merci.
Thank you very much. That'll be all for me. Thank you, Mr. Desilets.
For 2 minutes and a half, please.
Well, thank you, Chair. And just want to clarify that the minister does not have to wait for a report. She can do things without that, but I appreciate that she is waiting for our report. So the next question that I have, either to Harold or Mike, is if you could tell us in the work that you've done how other countries are recognizing service similar to yours in the Persian Gulf.
I deal with the Americans, Desert Storm veterans quite a bit, and I've talked to representative in England. I've talked a little bit to a couple of guys in Australia, and so those are my extent. But they're not seeming to be fighting like we are to get recognition at all, and they invite us to whatever events they have because we are one of the coalition people that work with them, and they respect us a lot. And as an example, the United States Memorial Day parades go on down in the States, and Desert Storm Veterans is the biggest group down there that marches in that. And guess who's behind them? The 6 little Canadians carrying the Canadian flag. And we're the only other country that's invited to march with the American Desert Storm Veterans. We're included 100%. So they don't have the same fight down there that we have here. They recognize Gulf War illness. Canada does not recognize Gulf War illness. They have a registry down there of Desert Storm veterans with the VA. Canada does not have that in Canada, registering Persian Gulf veterans or any other veterans from any other conflicts, as far as I know, for medical purposes. So they can actually wear these medals. And they're recognized by the country that give it to us, and they can actually wear them. And some of the other countries can too. So there is a lot of respect out there for Canada. And it's just that we're having to fight Canadians on the stuff that we shouldn't have to fight Canadians on.
And just to clarify, the medals that you're wearing are on the one side, and you cannot wear them on the other side with the other service medals.
The Kuwait Liberation Medal and the Saudi Arabian Liberation Medal, we have to wear them on our right side, and because we're deemed that we're being recognized for Yeah, the Governor General has informed us, the committee, that we can't be recognized for that, but other countries seem to give veterans other medals and they can wear them. And
Thank
nobody
you.
says anything about it, but a country that we help liberate also, we can't do nothing. We've been told no.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. And now let's go to Mrs. Morgenthau for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you so much, Chair, and thank you so much for your testimony today. I just want to clarify, either of you, Harold and Mike, you established the Persian Gulf Veterans of Canada in 2017. Is that correct? How many times since then have you reached out to the Department of National Defense for a meeting?
I think I've reached out 2-3 times.
Okay. Fine.
Only within the last year and a half
Okay.
type thing, that's it. And,
So you've reached out in the last year and a half to them 2 or 3 times and got no results?
got nothing. I don't
Okay.
even get a return email.
Thank you. You indicated that in your efforts, there appears to be no clarity or existence of policies on designation within the Department of National Defense. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm in 1988, Prime Minister of Canada, Brian Mulroney, created the Volunteer Service Medal for the Korean War in 88, and in 92 presented them. That's a while back. Now, we're being told today that the Veterans Affairs Minister is waiting for this committee to make a recommendation before she makes a decision. When you were serving and you were told in this situation that you were on active duty, who told you that?
For me, it came from our late ship's commander,
The commander?
Admiral, or at the time, Captain Becker.
Okay. And
But he is,
Mike?
Sorry, I don't think either one of our experts, but when I'm told I'm going overseas, an operation name is created by National Defense,
Right.
your status on that mission is identified, your rules of engagement, what kind of pre-deployment training you require,
Right.
and you go off, like get on a ship or a boat, or you go somewhere, do your business and come home.
Okay, so in being told on the ship, that was the first time, though, that you were told, Harold, that you were on active duty?
according to the ship's commander, we had to be put on active duty before we could sail into the Suez Canal.
Okay, so who told him that?
I can't answer that question because
Isn't that disconcerting, though, that obviously it must have come from D&D?
it came from D&D, but you got to remember that I'm a lower decker guy,
Sure.
and I don't question the captain or
Of
my
course.
officers that when they give us an order. So if they come down and say, this is the way it is,
Yeah,
as far as I know, it comes from higher up, which goes to D&D.
that's basically the point that I'm
Yeah,
trying to
okay.
make here, not at all that the other.
Yeah.
Obviously, the decision had to come from the Department of National Defense for the direction that your service was going to go. So this issue is really stymied within the Department of National Defense,
Agreed.
right? Clearly, when the Prime Minister of Canada presented medals in 92 to the Korean War vets, obviously that Prime Minister was able to make that happen.
I'm assuming
Like-
so. Beyond my pay grade.
Right? But the point is, it happened.
Yeah.
So here we are in a situation where I really think that what should be happening could be happening right now, regardless of the past. I just want to make the comment that this idea that we need to wait for the Veterans Affairs Minister to deal with this it's a stalling tactic because she can't make the difference. She is the associate Minister of National Defense, but I've tried to determine exactly how that role works for her, and I'm not clear on how that works. So the bottom line here is that I think we as a committee need to make some recommendations that go beyond Veterans Affairs and go directly to the Department of National Defense. Comment?
My discussions with Minister Jeanette Petitpas-Taylor has been, tells me, she has the ear of the minister. Obviously, as the associate, the minister is her boss. It's not within, we strongly believe that it's not within the purview or the authority of the Minister of Veterans Affairs to change our classification status. That should be done from National Defense. Referencing a policy that we can't find. And if there's no policy that exists, then you don't have to be held accountable. To what?
Well,
you can't nail anything to the wall.
I would say that they need to be held accountable for not appearing to have a policy. And I would certainly say that for us as members of Parliament that have gotten less and less opportunity over those years to even hear about what National Defense is suggesting or where they're going and whatnot, that they have a responsibility to make sure that those policies are visible, definitely visible to us and certainly visible to those who it's impacting. So I would just like, do I have any more time?
30 seconds.
All I need is 30 seconds. I would just mention, sirs, that there are two individuals in this room right now who, over this course of this government, have served as parliamentary secretaries for national defense. And I would encourage you to reach out to them to make sure that we take care of this now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So, nous allons donc passer. I'm going to invite Mr. Randeep Sarai for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to our vets who have given a lot for this country and in times of war. The Gulf War was a massive international undertaking with over 1 million members of the coalition working together. As part of that coalition, Canada's forces helped liberate Kuwait and from the Iraqi forces. On the topic of cohesion and collaboration, I'm wondering if there are similar groups like yours formed in other nations in the coalition, and if your organization keeps in communication with them to see how they have been recognized or what they are doing in their neck of the woods for the same.
The other countries mostly I deal with is the United States, and they had the biggest contingency of personnel there. So they're building a monument down there, which Veterans Affairs has actually donated money to on behalf of Canada and Persian Gulf to help build it. But they don't have the same problems we have here, right? And neither does the other countries. They're not fighting their country for the recognition. You know, they've already been recognized. We're fighting our own country for recognition. And they support me because they've just said, go get them, Harold.
So you're saying they haven't had the same challenge in designation in their neck of the woods, whether it's the U.S. or any of your other counterparts, Mike?
The lack of an existing post-deployment or post-conflict process leaves us in the situation that we're in today, 33 years, and we're walking the walk. Whereas our Five Eye Coalition partners that we have relationships with have established veteran organizations, and but they've been granted wartime service status by their countries in a more timely manner. Like, you know, I'm not an expert, but they certainly haven't had to wait 33 years. Within 1 year or 2 years, they're reclassified by their countries.
Thank you. My understanding is that representatives from D&D and Veterans Affairs will appear before our committee next week as part of the study. To each one of you, if you are sitting in one of these chairs as members of Parliament, what are the 1 or 2 questions you'd like us to ask them as officials?
I really want to see national defense's policies.
Okay.
You're all parliamentarians here. You deal with national defense. You and your peers over the last since 1950. And that Office of National Defense, the incumbents, whatever government was in place, but the absence of a policy, we can't, and I'm using that carefully because maybe they'll pull something out that was written in 1890 that I haven't been able to find, but I strongly believe it doesn't exist. So we're here having a study on something that shouldn't be necessary if there was a policy that existed. I want to see the policy. You guys need to see the policy. Thank you.
Anything else, Mr. Davis?
We have looked and looked and looked. But if you can't find the policy, then how are you supposed to make decisions on how things go and where they're going to go? You can't do it. So if D&D has the policy, well, then it should be readily available to the public, to the taxpayers, and to you guys to be able to read that policy to help you make your decisions, what's going on, and help tell me in a direction that how are we going to go, or how we are able to argue the policy or not. Right.
While there's no deaths from enemy action, many of the Canadian veterans were left with lasting effects of PTSD and other significant long-term health issues as a result of the mission. Is this something that you hear from Persian Gulf veterans that you interact with and engage with?
We've heard that lots, but I'm going to tell you, we never had any casualties in the Persian Gulf, but we've had casualties since the Persian Gulf because of the Persian Gulf and what we were exposed to. Plain and simple. We've got people down in the memorial book downstairs, but we had to fight to get them in that book, just so you know. They didn't automatically go in it. But that's where our casualties come from. And now we have veterans out there that they can't explain some of the illnesses they got. I've got some, but nobody can tell me where it came from or what it is. But, you know, God knows what it's going to do to me and what's it doing to other veterans out there. But no, we didn't lose anybody in the war, but you don't have to lose anybody in a war to be classified as a war veteran either.
No, I'm not implying that at all. I'm asking if there was, if the long-term health effects, if you've heard from others, which you said you have, from your both of your decades of service and vast experience, would you say there's a lot of adjustment to going from working and living in a wartime mentality in the military to a peacetime mentality? And can you share some of those adjustments?
There is, thanks for that question. There is definitely on each deployment, and I had 5 of them, so wartime, non-wartime, but there's a significant amount of personal investment and effort that goes into each of these missions when a soldier goes. There's pre-deployment training now that goes on for months, 5 days a week, hard, 10 hours a day. Then you get overseas, and your only job is to eat, sleep, and work. And I'm pulling 15, 18-hour days for 6 months. So when I get back on that plane to go home, I'm done. And it takes a while to recover. And depending on what you were exposed to as a soldier, because we've had a variety of different missions, there is a decompression period, serious decompression period required for some soldiers. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We're going to have 4 more MPs to intervene. And je commence donc avec Monsieur.
I'll start with Mr. Luc Desilets for 2.5 minutes, and we'll follow suit. Mr. Desilets. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Now, a question I should have asked from the beginning, which we should have asked from the beginning, which is a basic question. In your opinion, what was the mandate of Canada's mission in the Gulf War? What was the mandate?
That's a very good question. And now you're going to have to ask Commodore Summers that question, because he was the commander over there. And again, I'm not in a position that I can answer what our mission was over there. All I know is I fixed the plane flies, the plane comes back. But he and he's on the witness list for here. He's the one that question should be directed to, sir, because he would have the answer. He did all the talk.
Merci. Vous avez dit clairement.
Thank you. You mentioned it clearly a moment ago, and I agree that it takes a policy, having a clear and unambiguous policy. But what would be the content of that policy? What would you like to see enshrined in that policy in really plain terms? What would you like to see in that policy?
Thank you. Excuse me. There is a pseudo process in place that already exists within national defense, and it's specific to something called a battle honor. And a battle honor is a public recognition of a significant service event for a unit. And there's a internal process involved. Units don't have to ask of it. It's automatic post-conflict. A review is done internally within national defense using criteria, which I don't know, but there is a criteria list. And recommendations are made to the Chief of Defense Staff to award a battle honor, if applicable, to a unit. And one of the criteria is active participation with a formed and armed enemy. So that we received battle honors in 1993, November 1993. Why didn't National Defense reclassify us as wartime service veterans in 1993? The Governor General gave us a medal with a bar, and the bar was actively participated during the hostilities. Why? These things were done. Why didn't National Defense roll us over? Because there is no process. So if you've got a process to create a battle honor, awarding a battle honor should automatically flip you over. And the reason I say that is the only recipients of battle honors are wartime service veterans, with two exceptions, Persian Gulf and Afghanistan.
Thank you.
Merci.
Merci, Monsieur Desilets. Now,
Thank you, Mr. Desilets.
2 minutes and a half. Please go ahead.
Thank you. So my next question for the both of you is, it's very clear to me that the impact comes out at Veterans Affairs, but the decision-making power is with DND. And I think you guys have done a great job of explaining that and what needs to happen. So I guess my next question is, what do you believe the barriers are to the government of Canada recognizing Gulf War syndrome like other countries have?
Question. I'm not sure what the barrier. Well, I am sure. I guess the barriers to me is Department of National Defense hasn't made the decision back in 1990 and 92, 93, recognizing our service. That's the barrier right there. Because if it had the recommendation had to come out of the Department of National Defense, given to the Minister of National Defense at the time, well, then maybe it would have been already done and we wouldn't be sitting here rehashing what our Korean brothers and sisters had to do back in the 50s. So now we're sitting here. So what happens down the road when other groups show up here? Yeah. What's going to happen in the future when the guys come back from the Ukraine? Right? We're just rehashing, and the policy should be put out there that we can all turn around and read and understand. And the way that Mike was explaining the battle honors, the procedures is already set up. You can tweak that, and you could end up having the exact same thing to denote what type of service he had. Did he have a special duty area, special duty service, duty operator? I'm getting mixed up here, guys. I'm getting excited. Yep. So, but it can be done. And but to me, it starts with D&D, and they need to produce the policy directives on how they come out with these decisions.
And so basically with the Korean War veterans having to do this work and being successful, and the fact that so many times back in the 90s, there was acknowledgement on a meta level, on an acknowledgement level, but not on that policy. Really, it's governments since the 90s and that just have just not taken that opportunity repeatedly. And here we are in 2024, and you're still not recognized. So I'm wondering, what is the emotional and mental impact, not only on yourself, but on your families, because this lack of recognition?
For that one, that's a very loaded question for me because I get Mike, take it.
Thank you. Sorry, Harold.
You can't ask the question.
Everything's personal. Each one of us are different from the other. We experience things in life differently. I'm proud of my service career. I'm proud of the places I went and the people I serve with. I am joined to them for life. You live in a mud hole, you sleep in the dirt, you eat cold meals, you endure hardship, you're separated from your families. It's Christmas. It's like, oh, this sucks. It's just it's not any one thing. It's just the impact that special duty service or wartime service has on you. Because if you're doing one of those, you're not at home. You're off somewhere with your fellow peers, serving your country because your country asked you to go somewhere and do the country's business.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, for 5 minutes, I'd like to invite Mr. Terry Dovell. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mike. Thank you, Harold. I've had the opportunity to have you guys in my office for meetings, and you've certainly enlightened me to the issue, and I want to thank you for your service and thank those in the audience as well. But really, thank you for bringing this issue forward. And I'm sure on behalf of all the other veterans that are watching today, they probably give you a big shout out for being here to continually push this issue. And you say you started, I think, in 2017. And I've been on committees since I've been elected in 2019. And I think for us, I don't know if your thought of what we actually do and can accomplish is reality. I think that you're here. The news part is good, the news story. But at the end of the day, I'm disappointed. Like, the minister has not met. I hope that we will have the minister in here. But the minister would be the one that would do the policy, not so much this committee. And we heard last week from Mr. Sampson, who happens to be here as well, that there's really two issues that they feel are probably the reason why not. And one is the current government might not recognize war in general. It's just not perhaps what they want to get out there. And the second is the financial. So I'm of the belief that, quite frankly, sitting here, that they don't want to do it. Why do you think that they don't want to support this? You have, like, as a committee, I think everyone in this room, is thankful for your service, believes in what you're saying, and you've met with so many MPs. Why do they not want to support this?
Thank you for that question. I'm a 66-year-old Canadian citizen, and I grew up in school looking at history books and learning about Lester B. Pearson and the United Nations service and the Blue Berets and the good stuff that we've done in the world and continue to do. And we're happy-go-lucky, nice, polite Canadians, and we do not do horrible things to each other. Not going to happen. So every time we raise into the consciousness of the country that, oops, we've gone to war. Shh, don't tell anybody. Maybe they won't know. Maybe we won't upset them. So I think that there's an element there. But
do you not think that the individuals that are here? I'm not on the government side, and hopefully will be at some point in time. But do you not think? I know myself. If I get a question or if there's something I feel strongly about, like, should they not be pushing harder to the minister to actually say, this is something I'm hearing in my riding. This is important. Because you said a great comment. I won't fill in that word. Why do they? I hear that at the Legions. I'm from a base town in Angus, Ontario, base Borden. I hear that. So the role of the individual is to push for that. You've met some of these MPs. I'm just saying, I don't think they want to do it, point blank.
The military population today, so that's, we did a 2021 census and there were like 450,000 of us or something. Regular force and reserve source at another 100,000 people to that number. As a community, the military community is getting smaller and smaller as this country grows to 42, 43 million people. So you're not seeing me less and less and less. In the First World War, it was like, what was the number? One in,
You talk to people here, it should have changed, but I got to see she wants one last question. You want to see some time? You want to see some
Is it time?
Yeah, quick question.
Okay.
Quick question. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Chair. I just want to get clarity on this. You indicated that in 93 you got battle recognition. And in 92, medals were presented to the Korean War veterans for their wartime service. This tells me, does it not tell you that for a prime minister to make that happen, he had to work with DND? There needed to be some significant interaction to create this policy if it didn't already exist. So why can it not be done now? Where you indicated there's no process in place, that's your impression. How can that be when this happened already? Do you not think that DND has the capability even right now to make this happen?
Yeah.
I can only guess that it's politics or something that evolved, that somebody, you can do anything if you're motivated very quickly, but I don't believe that we found any policies in place. So what the government did with the Korean guys, when they did it, I haven't found anything. I don't know.
You haven't been told or showed anything.
Shown it at all. It hasn't, no one's opened the window.
And we can't find out how they got it done because the Library of Parliament it's so old that it's not online anymore. So I can't reference it.
I got a friend over there. We'll see what we can do.
Thank you. And for the last questions, I invite Miss Effa to close this.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. I just want to, I know the
Thank you,
Conservatives
Mr. Chair.
make the government look bad, but I just want to point out the reason that we have an extra former parliamentary secretary to the Minister of Veterans Affairs is because she remains engaged and she's been arguing with you. Defense. Thank you. Anyway, I just want to shout out to my colleague for taking time and being here. We've got an extra member today because she is engaged and she cares. We've all agreed to bring the Minister of National Defense. I have a meeting coming up with you in my office, so I just don't want to leave the impression that we don't care and we haven't been hearing you. I was really interested, Harold, you gave an excellent, I think, summary of what you think the process should look like and how it, with regards to battle honors. Could you maybe expand on that or talk a little bit? If there is no process or policy, maybe both of you could weigh in on ideally what it should look like.
Well, I'm going to pass that to Mike because Mike has been researching battle honors, how it's been delivered and what the procedures are. So he's the better one to answer that question than I am. Mike?
In some ways, that's above our pay grades. But if I was to visualize it in my head and you created a committee, should it be inside national defense or should it be outside? Because I don't think that they've been handling the topic properly. But anyway, you could think of putting a veteran on it, putting a military historian on it, putting a prominent Canadian who has no skin in the game, make it fair, make it transparent. They're given a list of criteria. They look at it and go ding, 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 yes or no. And that process is transparent to the veteran community. So I go off on the hill and I go to Haiti and I have an opinion. And you, National Defense, or wherever this process is going to exist or be placed, makes it evident to me that, no, Mike, we disagree with you, get lost, or yes, we do. Bing, we have a wartime service event. And it's done. Not putting this responsibility on the backs of the veterans, which is the current situation. I am walking on a worn garden path that veterans have walked before me. And if you don't solve this problem for us or think about the future, I know some other veterans that I think might be headed in your direction that I can't speak for officially.
Did you want to add anything to that, Harold?
The process that is lacking right now that we see is, like Mike was saying, it's not there. It's there for battle honors, but it's not there for anything else except for the policy. Where's the policy that D&D turns around and says, we're going to make you this type of veteran, we're going to make you that type of veteran, we're going to make you that type of veteran. If it's taken out of their hands, and like Mike says, you have a committee, the committee don't have to be a public committee, they can sit anywhere. And they go down there and come out with the recommendation that this is the way, what that service should be recognized as. Well, then who are we to turn around and argue after that? But until that point comes out, show me the policy where it says that I'm not.
Thank you. I have a minute left. I'm going to pass it over to my colleague, Anita Vandenbelt.
Yes, thank you. And it's actually a machinery of government question, because I think the political will is here on all sides. But in terms of the machinery of government, the cenotaph is under Canadian Heritage. Commemorations are under Veterans Affairs. The designation is under Defense, but would normally have been done at the time. So we're looking at coordination between government departments and inertia within the system, because if there is no policy, we all know it takes a lot longer to create a policy, and particularly in a department that may believe that it is actually not their jurisdiction, and that sort of back and forth between different departments. Is this really what you think we're facing?
To me, the policy is this. D&D has had a lot of years to make the policy, and they keep making decisions without a policy that we can find. So that you're saying it takes a lot of years to do a policy? Guess what? They've had a lot of years to do a policy. So D&D should be able to produce the policy.
Mike?
Well, we've been the recipient of national defense responses to e-petitions and policy letters that have been written that are sort of canned responses that skate down the middle and don't say anything, and quoting policy that, in our opinion, doesn't even exist. And they've been not challenged and allowed to get away with it, and not being forced to produce it. Now, we're just two little simple soldiers that, quite frankly, we can't force that, make that happen. You guys need to make that happen. Please make it happen, because I think if we find out what I think is there, it's going to create a lot of...
You've done an amazing job in articulating this. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. As you know, there will be more meetings on that subject, so I'm pretty sure that you're going to follow our meeting, including members of the veterans that we have in the audience. So, Mr. Harold Davis and Mr. Mike Glennon from the Persian Gulf Veteran of Canada as president, as vice president, I'd like to thank you. Point of order. Yes?
Yeah, I'm looking at the clock. It looks like we've got over 15 minutes. Could we not do another short round of questions?
Well, it's possible. It's up to you guys if you want to go on. That's the list that I have.
Witnesses have come all the way. We may as well use all of them.
Okay, well, we have 15 minutes, so we're gonna make not the first round, but maybe a second round. So we're gonna start with two questions, two interventions of 5 minutes, and two orders, 2.5. So, Mr. Blake Richards, the floor is yours for 5 minutes.
Sure. Thanks, Chair. Today we've talked a lot about a policy that may or may not be required, and whether one exists or not, I don't know. Nor do you. You've made it really clear you don't know whether one exists. So there may be a policy, there may not be. There may need to be one to get this done, there may not. But I think for me, it boils down to this. If there's a policy required, the person that would be responsible for making that policy would be the Minister of National Defense. If there is a policy that does exist, the person responsible for making a decision under that policy would be the Minister of National Defense. So either way, that's kind of where the buck stops here, it seems. Now, I get you've had meetings with the Minister of Veterans Affairs, who says she's had conversations with the minister, but that hasn't gone anywhere. You've had meetings with other members of the government who say they support you. What they've done about that to actually actively support you, I don't know. Maybe you do. But the bottom line is we have a Minister of National Defense who won't meet with you guys, and it's his decision whether this happens, whether he has to apply a policy or whether he has to create a policy. So in my mind, there's only two things that could be the case here. One, that there is some barrier that none of us seem to be aware of that is preventing him from being able to do that. Or two, he just doesn't want to do it. So I don't know which one it is. Maybe if there is there some barrier that you were aware of that is preventing the minister from doing this? Because I'm not aware of one. Are you aware of any barriers that may be preventing this?
Thank you for that question. There is, two things we believe exist. There's a bias that's out there that we hear often enough. You guys didn't have any casualties, so you're not a war. Would be one.
Opinion or thought of why they wouldn't
it's a bias
to do it, right? It's not a barrier, though.
Right. So I guess if the next part two of that then would be you heard from Sammy Sampson on the 19th of September, and he talked about the financial deltas between Pension Act and Wellbeing Act, and because wartime service is embedded in the Pension Act, not the Wellbeing Act. So if there were changes done, as we understand the process, it's legal, which means then you need an act. And because if there may be money involved, you need royal assent, as we understand the process. So even if we come to wanting to affect a change, it's going to take a while.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and if that is accurate, then that's a legitimate barrier. Would be interesting to hear the thoughts of our analyst on that. And I'm not sure if I can ask the analyst a question now, but do you think, if I can, do you think that does that barrier actually exist? Is there a need here to change policies in order to have financial benefits in order to get this done?
Financial benefits, to my knowledge, for financial benefits, the only difference between being a wartime service veteran as designated by Veterans Affairs Canada is long-term care. That's the only difference I could find. The other difference is wartime service. I haven't found anything in the legislation defining what that means.
Okay.
Special duty operations is a clear process for that.
Okay. Thank you.
There's no special.
So it sounds to me like that barrier may not actually exist either. So it really comes down to the will to do it. And I mean, I guess my next question would come to this. You've had meetings with MPs of all parties, but obviously the Liberal members you would have met with have the ability, they're part of the government. They have the ability to go to the minister and try and encourage this to happen. When you've had these meetings, and I know many members, including probably almost every member, if not every member of this committee has indicated they support, have they committed to take it to the Minister of National Defense? And if they have they reported back to you what the results of those conversations were?
You have 20 seconds, guys. That's
We have visited with more than 40 MPs and 10 senators. Party affiliation was irrelevant to us. We just wanted time to sit before someone, make the business case, cross our fingers that at some point we would reach a tipping point and get some assistance in helping us move this issue down the football field.
And I guess my point, though, is that Liberal MPs could actually go to their minister, and I would really encourage you to encourage them to do that and report back what they hear from that minister. Because at the end of the day, it sounds to me like the roadblock is right there. So I would encourage you to have people go speak.
Thank you so much, Mr. Richards. Thank you very much. And now let's go to Mrs. Anita Vanderberg for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you very much. And I also want to just say to you that I appreciate that you are ensuring that this is not a partisan issue, that this is something that we know all of us care about. And getting you that recognition is something that we owe you as a country. And I just wanted to ask you, because it's sort of coming out as if it was just nothing. But over the years, there have been certain things that have changed. I know that under Minister Sajjan, there were changes to make the wellness benefits. And I think that at that time, the understanding was that it was about trying to create equivalent benefits. And really, at this point, I think we're starting to understand that it really is more about the actual commemoration, the actual recognition, the acknowledgement of the service. And this is something that my understanding is there's been a committee within Veterans Affairs that is looking at criteria, that is doing the consultation. So if you could just talk about what has been happening and the process, and the fact that turning a machine as large as D&D can be not the easiest thing at all times, especially when there isn't actually any policy to begin with. And when there is, for instance, the commemoration on the cenotaph falls under heritage, right? So there's so many different departments. But if you could talk a little bit about the progress that's been made over the years and the fact that this is really a trajectory that ultimately should be going faster, but is moving in the right direction. Is that correct?
No. I'll talk a little bit about the National War Memorial itself. Pre-2014, that National War Memorial was strictly reserved for wartime service veterans. We all know who they are at this standpoint. In 2014, the government of Canada at the time added in service to Canada, added the Boer War, and added Afghanistan. Remember, the title of the National War Memorial is National War Memorial. The UN Peacekeeping Monument that most of us probably know on Sussex Drive was built and dedicated in 1992 because the UN Peacekeeping Veterans of Canada were told, no, you cannot go on the National War Memorial. You are not wartime service veterans, so you have to go off and build your own. They did that in 1992. Back to 2014. So the government of Canada added in service to Canada. It's in very tiny letters, and directly placed under the dates for the First World War. So when I stand there and look at it, I go, 1914, 1918 in the service of Canada. Cool. I'm okay with that. But my discussions with the Veterans Affairs was, no, Mike, you're wrong. A, you don't need to be separately inscribed on the National War Memorial because you're not a wartime service veteran. Got it. But if I get reclassified, I want to be there, my own dates. But you also don't need to be there because you're captured by the in service to Canada. And I go, I didn't know that. The letters are 1/3 the size of the date letters, and they're directly placed underneath. They're not pulled out, blown up like all the other dates, and so that there's transparency and awareness. And in service to Canada is to capture the non-wartime deaths. Excuse me? National War Memorial. Now you're telling me you're changing your rules here, and you said, oh, we're going to memorialize non-wartime service. Did you sell the country then? So I think that discussion needs to be held with Veterans Affairs about this issue. We certainly have. They know I have an issue, and they're working on it.
45 seconds.
Gentlemen, a quick question. You heard the analyst indicate that there is no difference between wartime service veterans and special duty veterans with respect to compensation under the Pension Act or the Veterans Wellbeing Act, with the exception of the availability of long-term beds. Do you agree with that?
Sampson was here on the 19th. He discussed all of the ins, the outs, the ups and downs, what the policy were. And that question there was, to me, answered back then. So I won't be answering it.
Thank you very much. And maintenant, Monsieur Desilets, 2 minutes et demie, s'il vous plaît.
2 minutes and a half, Mr. Desilets. Thank you, Mr. Chair. On this file, for you, what is your worst obstacle or your worst enemy in this struggle? Is that okay? Did you hear the interpretation?
Yes, I did. The worst struggle for me, and I think here is fighting the government for something that we already should have for us and for future. Because, you guys all agree, but the D&D hasn't pushed it out. It should have been pushed out 30 odd years ago. It hasn't. So our struggle is trying to get that machine, the D&D machine, to move again. And that's the big struggle, because they're not cooperating as far as I'm concerned. There's no policies that tells which way we're going to go, how we're going to go. And that is a direct result that makes why we're standing here or sitting here today, because we don't know where to go. It's not working that way.
Une question facile.
Easy question for you. How does one feel as a veteran when you've risked your life, when you've left your family behind, and when you've had to make significant sacrifices for your country over a number of years? So how do you feel when you get such responses from the government? There's no movement, nothing that was done.
As a veteran, for me, and I'll give it my opinion, I spent almost 32 years serving my country, and I didn't ask for anything back. I just asked for support when I got out. And at the time when I was serving in the military, I didn't really care. I had medical there. My family had medical. We didn't think about it. The minute you walk out that door, number one, D&D cut you off, and then Veterans Affairs pick you up. And then you have to fight for what you want to get from Veterans Affairs. It's not a simple thing as putting in, oh, I got bad hearing. Well, prove to me you got bad hearing and prove to me where you got it done. So being a veteran, for me, I shouldn't have to go to extraordinary lengths to get anything. I mean, only what I deserve. I'm only asking for what I deserve, not for anything else or anything extra, just what we deserve.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Maintenant, nous allons passer à Madame Rachel.
We will turn it over to Miss Rachel Blaney for 2.5 minutes. Miss Blaney on our screen. Over to you, Miss Blaney.
Thank you so much, Chair. And I just want to thank both of you for answering questions for 2 hours. That's a tremendous amount of work, and I really appreciate you doing that. My question to you is, one of the things that we know is that recruitment and retention is becoming a bigger and bigger issue for national defense and for the CAF. And so based on what you're hearing from folks that you speak with, having your experience be one that you're out there fighting for so hard to just get that recognition, do you feel that it's going to impact people's interest in being recruited to serve our country? And will that make it harder for us to get people to join?
Thank you for that question. You're looking, in theory, you're looking at 2 walking recruiters or a couple of more behind us. And on paper, we're supposed to be selling the service to the next generation and the benefits that are obtained thereof in being a member of a family that has important work to do, on and on. When you end up in situations that we're in today and the journey that we've had to go on, it doesn't necessarily incentivize us to tell the teenager who rings my doorbell, should I join the military? And I go, you know, it's great when you're in, maybe, but be careful when you get out. And if you have issues. And, you know, you guys are more experts on that than I am. You could be homeless, you could be PTSD, you could have all kinds of issues. This is not something you think about when you're wearing a uniform. You're laser focused, you train, you do your mission, you look after the person on the left and the right. And that's all you care about. And it's only when it's over and you're out and you then discover what the heck is going on here. So I think it could, if this gets out, we've been trying to work within government. We've been trying to solve this inside the tent. Harold and I are not standing on Parliament Hill waving placards, talking to CBC, or doing anything. We're relying on your good graces as parliamentarians to see the problem and fix the friggin' problem in a timely manner. This is what you do. You know how to do it. I can't do it. I now turn it over to you. I have to, please. I have my tin cup. Thank you.
Thank you. That was an excellent answer.
As soon as he saw the flag. So, well, Mr. Harold Davis, as president of the Persian Gulf Veterans of Canada, and Mr. Mike Glenman, as a vice president, thank you so much for your testimony and during 2 hours today. And colleagues, members of the committee, I have to inform you that this is the last committee of our clerk, Mr. Malachi Azemar. So he's going to move to another committee. So by this Thursday. So please join me to have a round of applause to Mr. Malachi. Thank you so much. And also thank you for technician around here and translation. So, ladies and gentlemen, meeting is adjourned.